我哋好多謝屠龍嘅前線手足係去錄呢段音俾我哋大家聽。612係象徵住和勇不分嘅一個重要日子，所以我覺得勇武嘅聲音係非常之重要。And the next speaker will be Benedict Rogers, the CEO of Hong Kong Watch.
唔該晒。On behalf of Hong Kong Watch, it's a privilege to be with you today, and it is amazing to see so many people gathered here today. From Marble Arch to Trafalgar Square, in 9 cities around this country and in many cities around the world, let the message go out loud and clear, Quang Phuc Hong Kong Si Doi Gak Ming. Today, 2 years ago, the people of Hong Kong, not for the first time and not for the last time, stood up. They stood up for a simple, basic, fundamental, universal idea: freedom. And they stood up not only for their own freedom, for the freedom of Hong Kong, but for freedom itself. And so today we salute them, we stand in solidarity with them, we pay tribute to those who demonstrated 2 years ago. But today is not only a day to remember. Today is not only a day to pay tribute to those who courageously took to the streets on June 12th, 2019 and on other days 2 years ago. Today is not only a day to reflect on the contrast between the millions of peaceful Hong Kongers who protested with great dignity and the horrific police brutality with which they were met. Today is not only a day to remember. Today is a day of action. Today is a day to say to the whole world, 2 years ago the people of Hong Kong stood up for freedom, and now we owe it to them to stand up for Hong Kong and fight for freedom. So we call on our governments, the British government, the G7 leaders who are meeting right now in Cornwall, and other democracies around the world, to act. The time for strong statements, welcome though they are, is over. Strong statements are not enough. We need action. So we need targeted Magnitsky sanctions against those who have destroyed Hong Kong's freedoms. And we need targeted sanctions against enterprises that are complicit with the Chinese Communist Party's grave human rights violations. We need coordinated action among world leaders. We need other countries to follow the UK's example, and I really am proud of the British government's initiative for British national overseas passport holders, to give them a lifeline, to give you a lifeline. But we need other countries to join us, to offer a lifeline to Hong Kongers, especially to non-BNOs, young people, frontline protesters who need to get out, who need a place of sanctuary. And we in Hong Kong Watch are working hard every day to persuade other governments to do that. But I want to say one thing to those of you, and I think there must be many, many of you among us today, those of you who have come to the UK recently, who've taken up the British government's BNO offer, or to those of you who are not BNOs but have come here in search of sanctuary here. I said this a week ago in Leicester Square, and I repeat it today in Trafalgar Square. I want to say to you 5 words. You are very welcome here. And we in Hong Kong Watch and our friends in other organizations and our friends in Parliament will do everything we can to make sure that you feel welcome, that you receive assistance that you need to settle here, that whatever challenges and problems you face here, we support you in those. But I also want to say, and I know you know this already, otherwise you wouldn't be here today, but I want to say that the BNO offer is not the end of the story. Both for the British government, we must not allow the government, we must thank them, we must applaud them, but we must not allow the government to think that that is all they need to do. So we must keep up the pressure on the British government to impose sanctions, to work with other countries to lead international pressure on the CCP. But we ourselves also mustn't think that our job is done. And those of you who have safety here mustn't think your struggle is over. Now you are in a place of freedom. So let's work together. Let's unite to fight for freedom and stand for Hong Kong. Hong Kong was once my home. I lived in Hong Kong for the first 5 years after the handover. And although I no longer live in Hong Kong, and in fact I cannot go to Hong Kong now, Hong Kong still lives on in my heart. And I want to say to the CCP, yes, you have destroyed, for now, Hong Kong's freedoms, but you have not destroyed Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is here in Trafalgar Square. It was there in Marble Arch. Hong Kong was in Leicester Square last week. It's in cities around this country and around the world, and it's in the hearts of every single person who loves Hong Kong and loves freedom. And finally, I want to say, I'm so glad that we had among us here today friends from Tibet and representing the Uyghurs. And I think it is so important, as we stand for Hong Kong, let us stand for the Uyghurs as well, and stand for Tibet, and stand also for Christians in China who are facing the worst crackdown since the Cultural Revolution, for human rights defenders, for dissidents, for bloggers, for citizen journalists, for anybody who dares to challenge Xi Jinping. We must all stand together. I want to also remember my friends in Hong Kong who are now in prison, our friends who are now in prison. It is good that Agnes Chow was released today, but she should never have been jailed in the first place. And let us constantly think of Joshua Wong, of Jimmy Lai, of Edward Leung, and of everybody, whether they are famous or not famous, everybody who is in prison in Hong Kong today or on trial. So, as we conclude this amazing rally, let us go from this place determined to redouble our efforts, to fight for Hong Kong, and to do the things that people in Hong Kong now can no longer do or face great danger in doing. We can do for them. We can sing glory to Hong Kong. We can protest. We can speak out. We can march. And we can say with one voice for the people of Hong Kong, Gong Fuk Hong Kong, Si Doi Gak Ming, Ga Yao.
光復香港！